The history of crucifixion emerges from a distant and dark past, shrouded in mystery. The exact origins of this practice are difficult to trace, but its earliest occurrences date back to the punishment of war prisoners. Gradually, this brutal form of execution extended to encompass specific crimes, with treason and conspiracy against monarchs or thrones being primary reasons. Among the ancient civilizations that adopted this punishment, one of the most notable is the Roman Republic and later the Roman Empire. But here, take a look at this action. In ancient Egypt, for instance, a method called impalement was practiced. In this procedure, the victim's body was literally impaled on a sharp stake, leading to a swift death when vital organs were pierced. The hieroglyph representing this practice was an image of the stake, accompanied by the inscription, "Making wood." This practice is associated with the reigns of Sobekotep II, Akhenaten, Seti, and Ramses IX. For example, Meneptah ordered individuals to be impaled south of Memphis during his rule. In ancient Mesopotamia, which encompassed the Assyrian, Babylonian, and Persian empires, we find similar practices. The Assyrian king Sennacherib, after conquering the Israelite city of Lachish in 701 BC, had prisoners depicted on walls suspended on posts with stakes through their ribs. This punishment aimed to emphasize the cruelty and terror awaiting prisoners and rebels. With the advent of the Hellenistic period, under the influence of Alexander the Great's conquests, a new phase began in the Eastern Mediterranean. Greek culture, governmental systems, language, religion, and philosophy were disseminated, often with adaptations. Herodotus reported the crucifixion of a Persian general in 479 BC, which would become a later standard. They nailed him to a plank and hung him up. Alexander the Great also impaled around 2,000 prisoners during the siege of the Phoenician city of Tyre. Look, straight talk, the thing about language and translation is more twisted than a doll's hair. Back in ancient Greek, there were two key words, anastaurou, meaning a wooden post, and apotumpanizo, which meant to fasten to a plank. Then it moved to Latin, where it was crux, like a piece of wood to hang criminals on, and they mixed it all up to get crucifixion in English, which nowadays just reminds us of a cross. However, the challenge lies in the surviving manuscripts of the Jewish scriptures and the New Testament, where the term crucifixion is used without distinguishing between impaling or nailing on a cross. Check out the scrolls of the Jewish and Christian scriptures. Deuteronomy 21:22-23 prescribes that the body of someone condemned should not be left hanging on a post overnight so as not to bring God's curse. In the Greek translation of the Jewish scriptures, the word crucifixion is used for hanging on a post. Both Paul in his epistle to the Galatians and the Gospel writers interpreted this passage as a prophecy of events related to Jesus' death. But listen, Flavius Josephus in his Jewish Antiquities tells a story about Alexander Jannaeus, king of Judea, in the 1st century BCE, who crucified 800 Pharisees during a Jewish holiday, culminating in the execution of the condemned's wives and children in front of them. That was brutal, showing the religious and political turmoil of the time. Ancient Rome assimilated many practices from conquered regions, including crucifixion. Authors like Cicero, Plautus, Seneca, Tacitus, and Plutarch documented Roman crucifixion practices. And remember Spartacus's revolt? About 6,000 slaves were crucified after the rebellion led by Spartacus. Their bodies rotted on the side of the Appian Way, serving as a warning to other rebels. Here's the deal. Ancient Roman penal system differentiated between social classes. If you were upper class, you got your head chopped off for serious crimes. If you were middle class, you got a fine. But if you were a slave, guess what? Impalement for you. Crucifixion was reserved for crimes committed by slaves, presuming a slave had a higher chance of betrayal. And Julius Caesar, the legend, was kidnapped by pirates in the Mediterranean. He promised he'd come back and impale them, and believe it or not, the guy delivered. Pirate kidnapping was considered treason, leading to crucifixion as punishment. Here's the thing. Depending on circumstances, available resources, or other factors, some victims were sentenced to quicker deaths. They could break the guy's legs or remove the support to speed it up. One neat trick was to pierce the victim's side, as recorded in the Gospel of John. You know, the crucifixion of Jesus indicates that, in the eyes of the Romans, he was considered a traitor since he preached a kingdom that wasn't Rome. Those labeled as messianic troublemakers were condemned and often denied proper burial rituals, leaving them in a limbo between life and death. The victims' bodies were often left to be devoured by vultures, and the bones were thrown into pits or rivers. Some were simply dragged and thrown into the Tiber River. The limited number of crucified bodies found in burial contexts is due to the Roman practice of forbidding funeral rites for the condemned. However, some recent archaeological findings, like the recently unearthed bones of Jehohanan and another in Fenstanton, UK, suggest signs of crucifixion. The Shroud of Turin, which divides opinions with an image of a crucified man, also adds to the intrigue of this story. Joseph of Arimathea, mentioned in the Gospels, played a crucial role in requesting Jesus' body from Pilate for a proper burial. This highlights the influence and power some Roman officials could be swayed with. Moreover, one of the earliest depictions of Christian crucifixion is found in a mural called the Alexamenos Graffito. This image, portraying Christ with the head of a donkey, mocked the Christian belief in a crucified God. You're aware of the initial representation of the cross, the starogram, formed by the first two letters of Christ's name in Greek, chi and rho, superimposed. This symbol was used by Christian scribes as an abbreviation in manuscripts. It's also the sign that, according to accounts, Constantine I saw in the sky before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, 312 AD, which purportedly led to his conversion to Christianity, one of the bloodiest forms of punishment cherished by the ancients. This play had a profound impact on history and culture, from its origins as a punishment for prisoners of war to becoming a tool for instilling fear and quelling political rebellion. Crucifixion left an enormous mark on the annals of the past. And hey, the crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth, an event that transformed humanity's destiny, represents one of the most iconic moments of this brutal method. Jesus' death and the resurrection story not only inspired a new religion, but also continue to resonate in faith and culture to this day. The details, right? They vary in paintings, but this crucifixion remains in our minds as a symbol of suffering, injustice, as well as resistance and triumph. And as we journey through these dark pages of history, it's worth remembering that what's already past is what's shaping our present and future. What are your thoughts on the history of crucifixion? Please leave your comments below, sharing your reflections on the crucifixion and its historical implications.